Folks, today we're talking about my top 10 favorite Prodigy discs. Now, little known fact about me. I used to bag almost all Prodigy discs back in like 2022, and I think they have a lot of great molds that kind of go overlooked because they're not one of the more popular brands on the market right now. And today we are diving into all of my favorites, all the best that Prodigy has to offer. We're talking about it today. But of course, as always, this is just my opinion. If you have a different set of favorite Prodigy discs, please let me know down in the comments. Without further ado, let's just jump into this thing. And at number 10, we have the D4. This is an all-time underrated gem of a distance driver. The D4 has the numbers 12, 5, -22, so this is a pretty flippy distance driver. It's very rare that I say a distance driver is just like effortless distance. And part of that is because with these 12 and 13, 14 speed discs, you still have to get them up to speed. You have to have a certain threshold arm speed to really see their true flight. But the D4 kind of defies all of that. These are flippy enough where I can throw it more like a fairway driver at that like 70 to 80% power and still get a really nice glidey far distance driver flight. But at the same time, they're not so flippy that I'm accidentally like turning them over into rollers. So I find the D4 to be probably one of the best beginner distance drivers on the market. The D4 kind of a cheat code in that regard. And at number 9, we have the Prodigy A2. This is one of their more popular molds. It's an approach disc with the numbers 4204. And these are freaking beefy. I really couldn't believe how overstable this specific A2 is. This one's in the 400 plastic. Definitely more overstable than the zones that I bag, but makes them really reliable, really consistent wind fighters. And the A2 is probably the disc that I see non-Prodigy throwers throwing the most. Like if someone's just bagging one Prodigy disc, there's a good chance it's the A2 because having a really overstable, really low glide approach disc can be really valuable. And at our number 8 slot, we're going to the complete other side of the stability spectrum. We're looking at a pretty flippy disc in the F7. The F7 has the numbers 8, 6, -31, and is one of the most understable drivers in the Prodigy lineup. Not as understable as the F9, but where the F9 is just like insanely, stupidly understable, hard to get legitimate disc golf line flights out of it. The F7 offers all the understability you want while still being very controllable and easy to use. I love the F7 for hyzer flips that flip up to flat, but keep going to the right and never really come back at the end. This is the type of disc that I think is just awesome for woods golf, where I love shaping really unique lines around trees and obstacles. People with faster arm speeds are also going to enjoy this for a roller, but I honestly just love it for air shots because I love that it just never fades. It's really important for me to have a disc that doesn't fade in my bag. Having a disc that I can shape a lot of unique lines with based on how much hyzer I put it on is really, really important. And in 7th place, we have the Prodigy FX3. Now the FX3 has the numbers 9, 4, -1.52. What I really love about the FX3 is I can throw it really hard and flat, and it's just gonna go really straight. I find these to be a little more overstable than the numbers suggest. Like I don't get a ton of turn out of it, but because of that, I can just get those laser beam straight flights when thrown flat. And there's some situations where if I have to reach a basket that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone for my typical fairway drivers, I reach for the FX3 because I get good distance with it and I don't really have to worry about overpowering it. On the flip side of that, if I don't throw it hard enough, I do see that fade earlier in the flight than I typically would with my other straight fairway drivers. So there are pros and cons to this style of disc. Very similar to something like the Discraft Undertaker or the Innova Savant. So if you like those discs, I definitely think you should check out the FX3. And in 6th place, we have the Prodigy A5. Now, I already talked about one A-series disc, that was the A2. The A5 is very similar, that it's still an overstable approach disc, has the numbers 4302, But man, the A5 is a really special disc. It reminds me a lot of my Axiom Tempo because it's not quite as overstable as your traditional overstable approach disc like the A2 that I talked about or a Discraft Zone. But at the same time, you get that really flat top, you get a nice low profile hand feel, fantastic for the forehand grip. But for me, I like it when my forehand approach disc is a little bit more on the neutral side. Because of that, I find it to be a little bit easier to shape shots. I also don't have to worry about backing off on the power. I can throw it a little bit more gently and still get a great flight. But with more overstable options like that A2 I talked about earlier, I would just get like a really aggressive dump off fade early in the flight. I can back off on the A5 a little bit for those gentle 150 foot approach shots, get a very usable flight. But I can still power up on it, backhand or forehand, goes really straight for 60-70% of the flight. Then you get that dump off fade. Whether you like that really low glide overstable option like the A2 or something a little bit more on the neutral side like the A5, totally comes down to personal preference. And I think you can get away with bagging both a disc like the A2 and the A5. Prodigy's approach lineup, this A series lineup, is star-studded. They have a lot of great options, and I think the A5 is the best of them. And big thank you to Prodigy Disc for supporting this video in the form of a promo code. Use code FlyingFajita10 for 10% off your order at prodigydisc.com. Use it in the checkout. You can support this channel. Also get a nice little discount from your order. And now we'll jump onto number 5, and that is the Prodigy D1. This is their classic distance driver. A lot of their pros use the D1 for max distance. It is a very overstable driver, as the number is 12504. A little too beefy for me to get that max distance, but it is a great complement to the D4 that I talked about earlier, where the D4 is kind of that neutral to understable driver. This is the really overstable distance driver for headwinds, for skip shots. I really like it on the forehand as well because it's extremely torque resistant. You always know you're going to get a very strong fade. But I absolutely love it for the distance skip shot. If I need to go that 350 plus feet, but I also want it to hit the ground early, maybe get underneath some trees or some obstacles, but get that skip, get that left movement on the backhand or that right movement on the skip on the forehand, the D1 is a go-to. And at number 4, we have another disc that I think is super underrated, and that is the F1. This is in the 500 plastic, has the numbers 84, -13. You might think that the F1 would be a pretty overstable disc, but I find that the stability of the F1 fits in that perfect range of overstable enough to be reliable, you get a little bit of checkup at the end, but still neutral enough to get really straight flights that carry before you get that fade at the end. When I throw it on hyzer, it's just gonna hold that angle the whole time, but really be pushing the whole flight. This is not a low glide Firebird style disc. Instead, this is a disc for me that I'd use for tunnel shots where I still need to throw it hard and get good distance, but I don't want to turn over. F1 is that disc. And at number 3, we have the Prodigy M4. This one's in the 500 plastic. Has the numbers 55, -11. I absolutely adore straight flying mid-range. One of my favorite slots to throw in disc golf. The M4 I actually threw a lot before I started throwing the Hex. They are very similar discs. I'd say that the M4 tends to run a little bit more understable than the Hex does out of the box. And because of that, I really like the M4 on the hyzer line, where I put it on hyzer, pops up the flat, flies really straight for a while, get a little bit of fade at the end. The M4 I like for those shorter tunnel shots where I can kind of pull back on the power a little bit. I still need to go straight. Want something that really just floats throughout the flight. M4 is a great choice. And at number 2, this is one of Prodigy's more popular putters, one that I've seen a lot of people using lately for that understable turnover style shot. That is the PA5. This was in the 400 ultra soft plastic. Got that super soft taco plastic. has the numbers 3.4, -2, 0.5 fade. This is a hyzer flip machine. You can put this on any level of hyzer angle. You can put this thing on like a vertical angle and it's still gonna pop up to flat. And because of that, it is just an effortless turnover disc. If you are someone who struggles with getting turnovers consistently, the PA5 is a great choice because you don't need a lot of power to get that full turnover flight. I like it for like those touchy backhand approaches where I really want to avoid fading like at all in the flight. Because of that, it's almost got that catch disc sort of feel to it, like the glitch and the pitch that I really like, where you're just not really gonna get any fade at all in this disc, but you still get a lot of understability. Like those glitch pitch discs, you're not really getting a lot of understability. Those are more just neutral. This is an understable workhorse. So if you're someone who just loves getting really unique shot shapes out of your disc and you like throwing on hyzer a lot, or you just play a lot of wooded courses where you really need to navigate a lot of unique obstacles, PA5 is a great choice. And at number 1, you guys knew what it had to be. It is the Prodigy PA3. The PA3 has the numbers 3301. This is an all-time classic putter. Definitely Prodigy's most famous, most popular disc that they have. Really flat top, kind of that like medium to slightly low profile feel. Also has the bead on the bottom. And these guys actually have a pretty good amount of overstability. They will go straight if you throw them hard, but these guys definitely check up. Like I can throw some Anheuser flex lines with them. I also have a premium plastic one that I really like for like approaches or even off the tee. This one's in the 300 soft fractal plastic. The fractal plastic just looks absolutely stunning, really fits the PA3 well. I've actually been toying around with the PA3 for some putting lately. I've kind of been in a putting slump with my Pixels, probably just because of lack of practice, because it's, you know, it's been winter, it's been terrible weather here in the Midwest. But I've really been liking the PA3, even though it's a bit more on the low glide side compared to something like the Pixel. Makes it really good if you're putting in windy conditions, but also if you talk to someone like Gannon Burr, who used the PA3 for a long time when he was at Prodigy, he really preaches about how you want something with a bit of overstability for that consistency. And while that historically hasn't really been my style for putting, I've really enjoyed using the PA3 for putting just in the last couple weeks for testing purposes. But I really think that this might be the best throwing putter and putting putter combo. Like I absolutely love the Envy Proxy discs for throwing, not so much for putting. And I love the Pixel for putting. The PA3 on the other hand, throwing and putting, like it's just an all-in-one amazing combo of a disc. The PA3, like I said, all-time classic. If you haven't tried the PA3, you really should. And guys, that does it. Like I said, if you have a different set of favorite Prodigy discs, why don't you let me know down in the comments below. And if you like this video, I'd appreciate if you consider liking and subscribing. We are on the precipice of 2,000 subscribers, which is so awesome. Thank you guys so much for supporting my videos, supporting what I do. I really appreciate it. And of course, as always, I love you guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.